show up for some discussion that we're going to be having. So I wanted to go ahead and get started with some other business, but there's just two things on the agenda for today. One is to kind of a roundtable discussion around Victory Park, and we'll get to that in a minute. The second is a streets audit, a street condition audit that we'd like to talk about and hopefully pass on to council. I don't know if we, as a committee, we'll send a letter if we'll get all of council, but we'll talk about that. The whole idea for a street audit, as you all know, is to evaluate the condition of our streets. And I know that everybody is like, well, they're all bad, but there are varying degrees of bad. And a street audit will allow us to identify the most serious streets, the middle offending streets and such, and be able to help prioritize where we need to direct funds and attention in the near future. I know that a street audit have been done in the past. I think it was around 10 years ago, but that's enough time that's passed that we need a fresh one. So I hope that some of the money that's been freed up in our street fund could potentially be used to pay for an audit. So I don't know if you all have any thoughts on it or ideas in addition to it.
I completely agree. I think the last one was either done in 2004 or 2008.
Right, I was thinking 2008 for some reason.
Maybe it was 8. I completely agree. I don't think we can go buy an old one at this point.
No. Great. And for anybody who might be listening, I know we know this, but it's, we do have money freeing up in our funds because of the financial recovery plan that we've been doing. And as a result of that, we need to have, I think, educated opinions of how and where we should be spending it. And so this, I think, really can be kind of like almost an appendix to, if not the recovery plan itself, the capital improvements plan. And so I think that we should collectively view it as part of that effort.
I think that the streets are probably our number one priorities right now.
I think so. I mean, everybody's always interested in that, and we're most interested in that. And that's kind of like, as we, I know in the back of our minds as we think about freeing up money, that's always the first thing that we think of. So,
and if we're prepared in advance to know where we're going with it, we won't have to wait for this later.
Absolutely. Any thoughts?
I disagree. I think that'll help. That we'll be able to maximize our funds that we have available and get someone else's perspective. So it's not
right.
I think this street's the best or this street's the best. We actually have a professional opinion, so I think that would be important.
I think that's great. So I suppose we could send a letter out of committee, or we could bring it up to council and ask council to send a letter. Is there any preference to that?
If we had council send the letter, we can get moved on it tonight.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, then we'll do that.
That was a hard one.
That was moving right along.
We were sweating there.
The main focus of this meeting is to talk about Victory Park. And if you all would like, just come on up and grab a seat. Yes, and I will have you do that too, actually, before we get started. Yes.
I'm going to stay back here so that Jane can.
Are you sure? You can come and contribute if you want.
Can't stay till the end.
So
we have a couple more people coming from Off Pike Market.
right, I knew that they had planned on coming.
Yes, so they'll be here. Anyway, we need to do a parks cleanup roundup first.
Yes.
So my name's Hillary Cannon. I live here in Norwood on Hazel Avenue. You guys have talked to me before about the Norwood Quality of Life process. I am a co-chair of the infrastructure team. So just a little background. This is a resident-led process to think about the future of Norwood. And so we spent the last 18 months, we started interviewing dozens of people across the community, residents and stakeholders. And then we had a whole series of community meetings and workshops, and more residents got involved then. And we came up with what we're calling the Norwood Community Agreement, which lays out a 10-year kind of vision for the future and some goals and projects around that. On the infrastructure committee, first of all, I love the idea of a street audit. Helping improve our streets is definitely a priority for residents and stakeholders. But one of the other main priorities out of the infrastructure committee was empowering people to polish the gem. So through that whole process of interviewing residents and working with other residents, what we found was that we all came to Norwood because we really loved the shape of the city, the bones of the city. We have these great walkable communities, and we have these great streets and all of these parks. And yeah, they need a little upkeep, but how can we make it so that people can help with that upkeep? So you guys already have started with the Adopt a Park program. That was wonderful. And one of the first projects to come out of this quality of life plan and the Norwood Community Agreement was Norwood Cleanup Week. I have to give a huge shout out to Renee Durker. This really is something that she started talking about from the very first meeting, very first interview with her, is, Norwood used to have a whole cleanup month where the whole city would turn out, and it was a thing, and everyone would try to clean up their yards and work together to clean up the parks. And so we decided that we would start a little smaller this year and see if we could do a Norwood Cleanup Week. So it started 2 Saturdays ago with a Montgomery Road street sweep. We had 50 people. I don't know if you guys remember, but 2 Saturdays ago the weather was miserable, rainy and cold, and we had 50 people, including 15 Xavier kids, Xavier students, come out and pick up trash along the entirety of Montgomery Road. We had about 3 dozen or more bags of trash that Betta's down at the south end and Indian Mound Cafe at the north end agreed to take for us. Bruce Hobbs single-handedly coordinated recycling for that street sweep and also for the parks cleanup, which was this Saturday. We encourage people, I'm sorry, I thought you had a question.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
We encourage people throughout the week to take time during the week to think about their own property. Could we be cleaning out beds? Could I do a litter walk in my neighborhood? Some people did, and they posted pictures on social media. We also encourage them to take advantage of the resources we have, like the yard waste bags at the health department. Our health department is amazing, by the way. They gave us free yard waste bags for both the parks cleanup and just anyone else who came. And Donna Lake messaged me actually on Friday and said, by the way, the health department is concerned you might not have enough. So there's some extra ones sitting out on the portico if you need them, and we did. On Saturday, we had 85 plus volunteers. I'm still getting official counts coming in from all the parks, but rough estimates, more than 85 people came out across 9 parks in our city. We collected over 100 bags of trash, another 100 yard waste bags. Public Works, huge help. They worked with us so that the volunteers could leave the trash and the yard waste at the parks, and Leah and I coordinated so that Public Works could pick all that stuff up on Monday. We had people step up to coordinate the work at each of those 9 parks. I have to thank them by name because honestly, if it weren't for these folks stepping up, there's no way we could have coordinated all of this work. We had Danielle Black and Eric DiNardo at Millcrest, both upper and lower. We had Will DeLuca at Northwoods, Dia Miller at Marsh Park. Amy Wolfenbarger took over 2 parks, both Hunter and Fenwick. She and her family took the lead on those. At Victory, this is actually the partners that are in the room tonight to talk, collaborated there to make that park great. The American Legion and Off Pike Market were the captains there, and the American Legion donated all of the mulch for Victory Park. Burwood was Kristen Berkey and Alicia Locke. those two women actually are part of another quality of life project. The idea of creating block captains, or trying to identify block captains across the city to help connect residents. Both Kristen and Alicia are block captains. At Doral, Ryan Hart stepped up. He donated on his own flowers for plantings there. And for a while he was working all by himself, but he stuck it out until some other volunteers showed up. And at Waterworks, Ian and Lindsay Matthews took the lead. Ian also created the signs that you might have seen out in around the city beforehand that we plan to reuse for future parks cleanup, because this is not the last Norwood cleanup week. I mentioned that the American Legion donated all the mulch for Victory Park. We also had a large donation from the Gem of the Highlands 5K for mulch at the other parks. So with the exception of Waterworks, which is covered by a separate trust, you all know that, all the other parks received mulch for the beds and for the play areas through the Gem of the Highlands 5K donation. So it really was kind of a joint effort from people across the whole city. And it was, I don't know, it was really cool. I think maybe Eric DiNardo at Millcrest might have said it best. Every time I saw him, and multiple people have said that he said this to them too, it was, oh my gosh, it's really happening. There are people here. We're doing this. It was just a really great day. And I think we were all really proud of the work that we were doing for our community and the way we were making it look.
Well, thank you very much. Of course, we've always supported everything that specifically with this committee and your committee is doing with the infrastructure, and it was great. It was we participated in it. I helped clean Northwoods, and it was great to see everybody come out, and we're so glad that it was successful, and we look forward to more cleanup weeks and more from your group.
Yeah, I think I can tell you right now the plan is to do another Montgomery Road street sweep this summer, right before the Norwood Day Parade. So we'll get the street good and clean for spectators for the parade ahead of that. And then we hope to do maybe another cleanup day or maybe a planting day. We're still working out the details in the fall. Keep Cincinnati Beautiful donated the trash bags and gloves and some other supplies for us. And they are willing to do that on a quarterly basis. So we're going to continue working with them and see if we can find other funding sources to expand this effort.
That's great. All right, you're more than welcome to stay up here because I know that you have a passion for this too. But if anybody else wants to come up, I know that.
We'll just scoot. Yeah, there's plenty of.
Move the chairs around.
Yeah, probably got to scoot around a bit.
I can go to the end because I'm not going to be able to stay at the better end.
Oh, you want them to play now?
So you guys can move on down.
These are just some idea plans that Greg O'Rose with City Planning has put together. Nothing else, it gives us something to look at. Right, so there's not a whole lot of agenda to this other than there are many of us who have a passion for Victory Park, and rather than all of us working independently from one another to help improve Victory Park, I thought it would be a good idea to bring us all together and maybe kind of get us all introduced and get us kind of starting in the same path, so that as we try to do things with Victory Park that we're there to help and support each other, because I think that's really one of the best ways we're going to be able to get things done with our parks here in the city, is to when there's passion for a park and when there's energy and desire to capitalize on that and help move it forward. So they're city parks, so we kind of have to be involved to some degree. And so that's kind of what we're looking to do here. So if you all could take a second to introduce yourselves and who you're representing or what you're representing, and a little brief bit of your interest in Victory Park, and then maybe we can go from there. So Eric, if you want to start.
So, for those that don't know me, I'm Eric Bryan, and I'm an officer at the local American Legion. So just very briefly how I got involved in Victory Park. So we do a ceremony every year for Memorial Day. And back in 2017 when we were having our ceremony, I'd have to say that I was a little perturbed just at the upkeep of the park. So we have a general up there and we're speaking, but there's cigarette butts on the ground, as well as just like the general upkeep wasn't there. So when 2018 came around, like never again. It's like, guys, before we have another Memorial Day ceremony, we're going to clean it up. So a lot of effort was put into cleaning it up, and we had a pressure washer out, worked with the city. I think Donna, you were involved as well. And so we kept it going and had a great service. Comes Norwood Day Parade, there's flyers sending out about an infrastructure committee, I get involved there. At the same time, our American Legion is redoing the tank. I know there's other interested parties such as Off Pike Market who are looking to have good foot traffic come. And so just with all these different partnerships and then working with Greg Oros, it seemed that there's this coalition, collaboration together to bring Victory Park. So just in a nutshell, I would say that kind of our vision would be to improve the park and increase good foot traffic while respecting the memorials. I think memorials is very keen on a lot of people's minds, but I know working with the other parties, that's their interest as well, and I think it's getting the good foot traffic. So just to kind of segue off what Hillary mentioned, when it was all said and done, I couldn't tell you how many people were excited after the cleanup Saturday. A lot of people. As I left there, 1:30, pushing 2, see kids out on the park. I just got back from the park. I just went there after I got off work. You see kids there, and you still see it kept up. A little bit of litter, but it's still there. And you just see the excitement and all the emails. I figure we probably had close to 100 volunteer hours cleaning up the park, and we donated well over $500. Now that is just a start, but I want to keep the momentum going, and I think everybody else here does as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I'm kind of wearing, as I said, I'm Hillary Cannon. I'm kind of wearing 2 hats tonight. One, I am a board member of Off Pike Market. Taylor and I started this, a couple years ago now. So that's one thing. I'll let Taylor and Jason talk more about that. My other role is as the infrastructure committee. So one of the other goals of the quality of life process is to improve all of our parks. Specifically, we call out Victory Park in the Norwood Community Agreement, partially because 2 reasons. One, as we did those interviews, again, this is an 18-month process, we interviewed dozens of residents and stakeholders, and we had multiple, a dozen community workshops. And throughout all of those moments in the process, Victory Park came up again and again, unprompted by residents. People saying there should be a splash pad there. People saying there should be a market there. People saying we would really like to see it kept up better, or we would really like to just see that park come alive. It's so visible. It's important. So that's the first reason Victory Park was called out. The second was that through that, we want all of our parks revitalized, but through that quality of life process, we had partners like the American Legion at the workshops. We had people like Off Pike Market who had some interest there, or grew to have interest there because of the conversations that were happening at the table. So thinking about how do we revitalize our parks? Where are funding sources for revitalizing parks? Where are the people to come and do the upkeep that Eric's talking about? We felt like we already had partners in place at Victory Park to maybe make a visible start with the park revitalization effort there.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Taylor Provins. I'm with Off Pike Market. It was kind of just Off Pike Market was just an idea I had in the car with Jason as we were leaving the city one day. And I said, we're leaving our city a lot. what if we had a market here? And being the really supportive guy and believer in my dreams, he's like, go for it. And I was just like, okay. And I didn't really know what that meant at the moment. So it was so interesting because we've lived here, gosh, it'll be 6 years in June, which is hard to believe. I did not know there was a market building in Victory Park until our first market at Schumacher and Lay's on that November 5th day. And you know, we had put everything together, and we were there at the market, and this is before Norwood Quality of Life even, it was even happening, I believe. And we had several people who had been in Norwood for years, decades, who said, you know, there is an old market building in the heart of our city. And I looked at them, I'm like, no, I didn't know that. And they're like, yeah, and it's just sitting there. And what if, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, okay, that sounds like a really big undertaking. I'm like, let's get through today and let's talk about this market building. But we actually had, I would say, at least 5 people who had, you know, been in the city when it was, I believe, a safety lane, come up to us and say, oh, wouldn't it be great? And then Jeannie Sickinger, who's here as well, she had a farmer's market. We're super excited. We're combining with her now. I know that was brought up to her several times at the farmer's market. Jeannie, you know there's a market in the heart of our city. And so as we really started to move forward with Off-Pike Market and we combined with the Norwood Farmers Market this summer, we kind of saw this vision of, you know, maybe this whole Off-Pike Market and a brick and mortar, maybe that's not just a dream. I mean, maybe with all of these partnerships, all these people who want to see Victory Park revitalized, maybe this could be a thing. So yeah, I'm just so happy that we're all here at the same table. It's nice to be on a team. Here on a team talking about the same vision and the same goal. We would agree with foot traffic. We want positive foot traffic in the heart of our city, very much so. So.
Yeah, thanks for having us. So I'm Jason Provins, like Taylor said, and I'm with Off-Pike Market. I play more of the role of business kind of director. I have a business background, so I've been really helping the team think about some of the things as we grow and develop on what makes sense. Mm-hmm. So some of the things that I bring to the table with this is we want to if we're going to do a market, we want to do it with fidelity. We want to make sure that it's going to last and be something that Norwood appreciates. And it's a staple for Norwood that actually draws people here. What we don't want is for it to start and excitement gets built and then it fails. So with that park, as you can see, the market kind of sits a little off. So the things that are kind of going in the back of my mind are how can we highlight it to where it's a community space that draws people into the park. The memorial, I'm currently serving in the reserves, so those are very important to me as well. But then makes sense for the market so that all three kind of play together really well and just makes it a very successful space that can not only launch community out of, but economic development as well.
Yes.
I think it's an important point to make is Victory is kind of like the central park for the city, and I think there's a chance that revitalization there could potentially spread from there, and that's something I think we would all like to see. I also want to say real quickly before we get to you, this is not in lieu of helping other parks in the city.
Right.
We
That's a really good point. Yeah.
but part of what's great about this is the power that we have here. I think we'll be able to do a lot for the park that doesn't even require city funds to be able to do, which will free up funds for other parks in the city. And I would love to at some point have groups like this who are just as gung-ho about helping individual parks within their neighborhoods. So just wanted to get that. We aren't putting Victory on a pedestal over other parks. This is just an opportunity that we have that we want to capitalize on. So, Dana?
Okay, so Dana Bowl, 3947 Ellesmere. So everybody knows I'm kind of working on this project called Keep Norwood Cool, and I'm coming at this whole thing from a little bit different perspective, which I feel is a very important perspective to have as an overlay to a lot of these wants and wishes and goals that we're hearing from other folks. First of all, I want to say that I appreciate all the quality of life work, and that they met every week with dedication. That is a group that is expanding, but the core group that came up with the agreement is, what, about 50 people? Right?
I don't know that that's.
So maybe about 8 or 9 people on each committee. So that's fine. Having been down this road in all sorts of places, buildings, logos, branding, identity, I really feel that what's needed now is a city-sponsored charrette, so that people can say what they want, what they've experienced, negative experiences. I mean, I had to come up with a survey through Children's recently and really think through all the things I wanted to ask people. It was not about what I want, it's about what are all the negative responses that people are having here. The positive responses they wish they had there. And so, I appreciate everybody's work, but I think that now that the city is aware and everyone has said, we want to raise up Victory Park. I mean, let's face it, that was a campaign issue for you. That it's important that we get as much data on this as possible. So that's one thing. Secondly, I feel very strongly that this market building was originally meant as a farmer's market, as an open air market, as a flexible space. And I feel pretty strongly that it should remain flexible if it's a city asset and the city's going to get it up to speed, that while there's going to be, I mean, the way I hear people talking, it sounds like it's going to be a permanent store. But I could be wrong. So if it's going to be once a month or once a week, that's fine, but it's a cool building that could be used for if the Boy Scouts want to have a convention. I mean, we don't have a big pavilion in any of our parks. We have gazebos. So there's that. That's my second point. Third, if we're going to have all this activity at the market, and I appreciate Greg's work on this, but we're going to have people that want to sit on benches and eat their lunch or eat their snacks or play with their kids or listen to music. They're going to want to sit down. So no secret, I'm a New Yorker. I love Central Park. So I love the sidewalks the way they are, and I'd love to see Central Park style benches so people can collaborate and socialize and places to sit. And so I don't know if this is the most efficient way to get people to linger, because what we're really talking about is programming this space to have the successful market. And so part of the programming is, are you going to go? I mean, the farmers market's been on my street. Thank you. People come out for it. They can buy their stuff, and then they're kind of like walking around unless they brought a chair. So, I mean, I hope we're not going to like get into this big project and then have the same problem. So, finally, I'm going here. I've counted the trees. We've lost a lot of trees there, and I think that the perimeter needs to be a green buffer. One reason people love it is they're unconsciously, it's an oasis. It is cooler when you walk in there. So if we can trim it out with a lot of great vegetation and put some really robust shade trees in there, just so that when you go there any time of day, it's not going to be an oven. That feels just like the parking lot at Kroger. That's not what we're looking for here. So I appreciate everybody's work, and I hope you realize that in creative projects, revision is a thing. You have to just get yourself up off the mat to get the best product result in the end. So please don't hate me.
I do think,
May I say something real quick?
Sure.
Okay, I'm Judy Sickinger, founder of the Norwood Farmers Market. Come up here. My mouth is big enough, isn't it?
Yeah, but people can't see it.
I'm sorry, can you scooch down?
Oh, here, I got your chair.
Brad, do you want to come up?
I'm Jeannie Sickinger. I'm founder of the Norwood Farmers Market, also the Williams Avenue Community Garden. I completely agree with Dana. I absolutely agree with her. I think we should have a lot of shade up there. Benches, that's something that Donna and I have had a sit down with. We want that. We want people to be able to come and sit and mingle. As far as the marketplace goes, I agree with her. There's room for revision, perhaps. Absolutely. That's what this is about. That's what this process is about. But I think the shade is an excellent idea. We do need more trees up there. It's going to be scorching hot otherwise. The splash pad, like I said, Donna and I discussed that. We want people to be able to come and mingle and have, a family day, have a picnic.
There are tables.
Yeah. And we discussed shade around the splash pad. Also, plans for the marketplace. We would love to have a butcher in there. This is something that Mayor Williams and I have discussed. We'd like to be able to have people walk in there, grab a sandwich and a coffee or a beverage and sit out there and drink, have their lunch, have the local businesses walk over. So I agree with you. You're absolutely correct.
So, I'm actually, a couple things I wanted to say. One, I agree with Dana that a plan is needed from the city, or at least some sort of guidance. There's a lot of partners ready and willing to work with the city, and I think that was when you and I first talked about this, Eric. That was my pitch to you.
Yes.
Is that we have a lot of folks that are real interested, and we're all having these separate conversations, and maybe it's a good time for the city to say, let's everybody gather in a single room. So I think that is absolutely probably the needed next step here. I would like to clarify just a little bit about the quality of life. It is a core group coming to the meetings every other week, I swear, for a while, of about 50 people. It's a lot of time. Frankly, there have been Wednesday nights. We often meet on Wednesday nights when I didn't want to leave my family or didn't want to miss my kids' practices or games, but I did. And so it's a lot of time and effort, and not everybody is able to make those choices. But I want to be clear that we were not building a plan off the will of, 50 people in a room. We did dozens of interviews, and we were talking with people in the community, and we were reaching out, and we were working with the Community Building Institute, who were gathering data for us from the U.S. Census and other reports that they have access to. So while it is a core group of volunteers committing, including Eric Bryan, actually, including Dana and everyone at this table, we were using data to do that work.
Right. I was going to say something. Donna, did you want to say something about the splash pad? Just a little bit.
I've been thinking about a splash pad up there for about 10 years, so
This was going to be my parting project as I left.
It'll go over deadline. You'll be working on it next year. You know that.
Oh, definitely, for sure. So it was difficult to get somebody to come down to actually give us some numbers. I only used Shamrock Pool to get an estimate because they were familiar with the pool there because they have the pump, they had put that in. Since then, I have spoken to people up at Huber Heights who did a similar splash pad, and they got it done a little bit cheaper, but I don't think they filled in a pool. So my goal is to get these folks to come down and maybe take a second look at it. So this was certainly nothing that I was prepared to go with. It was something that I was just throwing out there to see what the possibilities are. My inclination would be that if this is approved by the city and the planning, I guess we'd have to go to planning commission, we'd have to get permits and all that stuff, but if it's something that the city wants to do, my initial reaction would be to apply for a grant through Ohio Department of, what is it? Yeah, like the brain fart. Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Rick Detmer and I did a grant that did the lower Millcrest that put in that soccer field and the road that went back there and all of that playground equipment through Ohio Department of Natural Resources. It does require a match, and the city doesn't have that match right now. So I'm out schmoozing people, talking about this possibility, and doing naming rights, quite frankly. And hopefully, if we had to do bonds for this, that we would have them commit to the same amount with the bonds with interest, or giving us a check outright, and I'll name it whatever, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. So that was just my thought. Greg and I met the other day to make sure to put this in your plan. Actually, I met with Jeannie. We sat down and talked about, how this could coexist with the market, because she wanted to use the green space in between the pool and the market, and it was kind of like the grade wasn't good, and we kept saying we can coexist. I mean, the splash pad might get people into the market, or the market might get people into the splash pad. And so then we added some tables around, and we know that we need trees, but we don't want to do anything around that splash pad. The guy from Shamrock Pool wanted to break up the concrete and put grass around it, and Jenny Wallace almost had a heart attack and said, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, she's the expert in this. You're going to get grass in it. It's going to be muddy. Kids will get mud in there. So our plan was to keep the concrete, but Greg talked, and we put the little tables around there, so something to give you some shade. I think we could probably plant some trees, but I think we can't put them in the plans here yet, at least around the splash pad, because I'm all new to this. There has to be a holding tank. I thought I knew all about pools and stuff, being health commissioner, but I apparently not. So there has to be a holding tank for splash pads and all that to keep the water pressure up, and so we can't put anything around. That was going to be like up against the back of the fence, so we have to be careful where the roots go in that. So that's just kind of my Reader's Digest version of about 4 or 5 years worth of work.
Thank you. And I also wanted to say, Greg, you can jump into, but this shouldn't be viewed as any kind of final plan. It's just lots of times when you're starting to think about something, it helps to have something to look at. I know Greg Oros feels that way too, and so if you'd like to say anything about it.
A little bit of background on where this came from. So it really, for planning, what it does in these type of meetings are a perfect way to do it. What you start to do is you get a lot of different ideas and a lot of different visions for how to develop a space. And so really the first one was Donna's splash pad, because she's been talking about it for years. Then it came in that off-pike market, or just the market idea, might even be feasible. So even that was just even a possibility, that an opening that maybe it's feasible. Then it came in the American Legion was interested in maintaining their space there and potentially even enhancing the space as well, because it's there. So when you start to get all these different diverging ideas, that's where I started putting it on paper so that it's better to see it in front of you. It's much easier to redline something in front of you, and none of this is set in stone. It's in the computer, it can be easily changed. It's so much easier to look and point. And for Dana's point, we don't have the trees yet, because typically you go into the big elements.
Right.
So you got the market, the splash pad, memorial, some type of middle area, kind of tying the two together. So that's what came into the plan you see for Victory, and it ended up being on the cover of the Quality of Life, but really it was more of a collection of all the ideas that had so far come forth. So to me, this is like a perfect time, and I can kind of go over it slightly with you, just as where I got some of these ideas, or we can just keep it general. So if you look at it, it was more playing off for number one, the memorial feel of the park. So that is existing, and sorry you can't see it at home, folks, but you come in, it's the existing memorial. Then there's already one pathway that's there that's leading towards the area described as seating area. It would be adding another pathway into there to almost enhance that memorial style feel and the formality. And then right now, there is a pathway that cuts through the center of the park. The main thought for that is that at this point, that pathway sort of feels like a cut through. And to me, because it's such a cut through, it's shrinking the park. It's almost making the park seem smaller, because it's almost like to get to A to B. It's a cut from Montgomery Road over to Mills, and that's why the park is there. By eliminating that and making more of some type of curvy path right there and focusing it towards the entrance, you're using it less as a cut through and more as a park-like setting, so it divides the space. The thought with the seating area is that it gives a final destination to that memorial, and it utilizes, if we just take off one railing on one of the side of the gazebo, all of a sudden we have a place where a band could be, where a wedding could be held. And then you have the additional seating that's out there that looks into the gazebo as the center point. And then you leave that grassy a little bit so people can then set up chairs out that if it's a larger event. So you almost built yourself a little bit of a amphitheater type setting in there. And then really just the walkways, that was someone said, make sure to keep it curvy walkways, and that's a park-like thing. So that's what I added. And then really the splash pad, this is just at the beginning. I don't even know if the tables are to scale, but to tie those in. And then we talked about getting into the splash pad from the park, but yet making it maybe limited access so that there wasn't dirt. You had said that.
So it wouldn't be available 24/7, but if there were an event there that was, somebody was being supervised, we could open a gate on that side of the park. Normally, the entrance would be through the bathhouse like it is now.
Yep. So I think we could set up a couple additional memorials similar to where the tank is. And then, so this is what I do is I just start with a general thing right here. Then we get into specifics later of where trees would be or whatever. So we get that general framework. That way, if we come back next month, I'll hopefully listen to everything that you've said, try to incorporate it, find compromise between two different viewpoints on it, and then we have something to analyze next month. So we're not spinning, if it's not on paper, a lot of times you start spinning in circles saying the same thing. So that's what I'm here to help.
Mayor wanted to say something about, if it's okay, Eric?
Okay, oh, absolutely.
First of all, this gentleman over here, I have part of it on cable, and I heard you say something very important to me, and that's the preservation of the dignity of this Victory Park. This is considered a park, but it's actually a war memorial. And for a war memorial to, how do I say this, to show respect for those who sacrificed their lives, and yet utilize that area for both enjoyment and respect, is, in my opinion, the perfect combination. That's absolutely the perfect combination. If we consult with the American Legion up there, the individuals that show the respect. And I hope you understand, Jeannie, my feeling, this is, like Donna's last hurrah, this is like my last hurrah, because I've dreamed about that market house for years. It's an architectural part of this city. It was an ice skating rink. It was the safety lane. It was several things.
Boxing club.
Yeah, and to have this come to fruition in the center of our city, it's absolutely the perfect storm. It's absolutely perfect. And it's not gonna, and the only reason it's gonna happen is because of people like you getting involved and shoving some energy into it, because that's what it needed. Let's face it, old people like me don't have a lot of energy left, but we still have the dreams and desires to see the center of our city. So I don't know what I can do, but whatever I can do, I will do. I ask one personal request. I sat on those cannons when I was 5 years old. Careful now. It's at the end of 1945.
Very respectful.
At and sat on those cannons. I hope you leave those cannons where they're at. That's always been special to me. And so this is absolutely, I couldn't have asked to see anything more satisfying, and to see this come to fruition. And we get the market house open and open that park. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm so thankful and grateful for all of your efforts. So I look forward to seeing it. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Go ahead.
So I think, Dana, to your point about the surveys, something that I thought a lot about, especially just as we've gone through the process and the quality of life rollout, people came up to me afterwards like, oh, are you involved in the park? Are the plans solidified yet? Because they had input. And even this morning getting ready and so on. So same thing as Hillary. I've dedicated a lot of time to this park. And it's well worth it. Every time I go by there, sometimes I'll just spin off after work to go see who's there and how does it look. So it just means a lot to me. I'm not from Norwood, but it's becoming just my hometown more and more every day. I think surveys are very important, and I think it's a community park, and the community needs to be involved in how it looks. And I think Greg has expertise to get it down, and I think that's part of to your point, Greg, of saying, hey, here's a plan. and this is a good plan to get everyone's feedback on it, but continue to get that survey data, however it's put out,
Right.
and incorporate it into the park. I think for us, though, for the American Legion, and so I get up there at our post and I talk a lot about this and get a lot of involvement. I know, Donna, you've been very involved, and speaking with a lot of our members, I know, Mayor, that they've been very respectful of you and saying, hey, this is what the mayor wants, as well as what we want. I think for us to continue with all this momentum, we need a plan going forward. And I think that's what I talked to Hillary about. That's a 3-year plan, X amount of time for surveys and the build on and then the funding. We just need the plan and to move forward because I'm 100% dedicated to it. And I know a lot of people at our post are too. And we want to see it, just get better and get the community better and then go to the other parks. We do our picnics at, Upper Millcrest and these other parks, and I want everything to be great. I see the old pictures of Norwood, and I'm like, wow, this is how it could be better. It could be all the nostalgia, all the good things of the nostalgia, plus better. And so I'm 100% committed, and I know a lot of people are as well. I just need a plan. And I think that's the thing that I really need to kind of hold on to. As the same thing, I dedicate myself away from my family against all my other obligations. What's the plan, and how do we execute that plan?
Well, I'm really open to using some of the resources I have. That Red Cap program is way beyond SurveyMonkey, and you can use a QR code. We could put that out and get input from the whole city really fast. Probably take longer to create the survey than to harvest the data. That's one thing, and so I thank you for your appreciation of that. When Greg, you were talking about the bigger elements first, of course, I think of green space in tiered different heights of greenery. I think of that as kind of like a designed object that needs to be set aside. And one thing I really want to encourage everybody to think about is we have Victory Park, but Victory Park could sit a whole lot bigger if mills were brick instead of asphalt. If we had a treat median just on front of the park on Montgomery. If we worked with maybe US Bank to say, hey, all of our other developments have some trees around so that instead of Victory Park being like this, it would feel like that. And that would just help create a buffer. It would cue people to like, hey, chill it down. We're coming to a park. There's kids, sort of take the volume down because it's kind of loud over there. So I just think there are a lot of really interesting ways to fix some of these problems that might not be super expensive, or maybe you're going to repave mills anyway. Why not use something that is, they're going to block off mills, right, for your outdoor market?
Temporarily, for a
But-
couple hours. Yeah.
Which I think that's fine, but why not have that graded in such a way that it's really perfect for that?
I'm just really so excited. I'm sorry, I'm just excited that this vision is possibly going to happen because we all are saying the same things, whether it's a splash pad, whether it's a market building, or whether it's trees. We're saying we love our city, and I just I had a long day with second graders, so maybe that's it. But I'm just really, I'm just really loving all of this so much. Second, I just want to say, we started off Pike Market with community as number one. You may not know this, but I drive 40 minutes to my school. My husband drives an hour. We're trying to get closer to home. It's just not working right now. But we choose to be here because we love this city. We love it here. All of our friends moved to the suburb. Our parents are in the suburb. And we are not going. So we keep doing house projects, and my dad's like, I guess you're staying. I'm like, yep, we're staying. So I just want to say that. So we are about community, and with this market space, if it does become a market for Off-Pike Market, and we do have a butcher there 6 days a week, and we can have produce, and it can be open and a place for economic development, we want to share that space. We do not want to be selfish with it being our building. If our community needs a place to meet, I think that building could definitely be big enough to have people meet there. My gosh, the Boy Scouts, they lugged so much mulch up our stairs a couple years ago. They can use it anytime they want. It's not really officially ours yet, but I don't know if I have that kind of authority yet. Probably don't. But I just want to say, like, this market building, it's not Off Pike Market's building. It's not, I don't know, Joe Schmo's building. It's Norwood's building at the end of the day. And I just really want to communicate that whether it's Off Pike Market who's managing it and running things out of it, or it's someone else who you feel maybe could do a better job than us, it's Norwood's building. And I just want that to be very clear that we're not going to be selfish or snobby about it. Anyone who wants to come in and use the space, anyone who wants to help us with the space, anybody who has ideas or thoughts, like, we are open. We are a part of this community, and we feel that everyone's opinions and everyone's thoughts matter. So I just really want to make that a point that we do not feel like possessive, is that the right word, I guess, over it.
I have a question, excuse me. I might be behind on a few things here because I don't know all of your plans. Has this building officially been given to use or promised?
No.
At this point? Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Right, and I've had that thought for many, many years.
I know.
I was contacted by Gene, and I said, there was, when I see all the enthusiasm, well, that's the truth. I mean, without it,
I get choked up. I'm my mother's daughter.
I know, but
I'm
without
sorry.
it will not happen. But with it, it can happen. And once you get to that point where you're ready to move, then we call the law director and we say, Mr. Moore, this is what this could happen to this building. Is it a lease? Is it a lease purchase? Do you want to lease it? Would it be to the city's advantage to lease it?
Right.
And have people oversee it? Would it be to our advantage to lease it for a year? Would 10 years, $1 a year, $5 a year? All those options can be explored. And the better the outlook and the better the plan, the better the desire to change that transformation, that area, I think is what will incentivize this, council and the city to get on and say, we need to change that. We need to go along with this program. So once that's decided, then we get into the nuts and bolts of who, what, when, and where, and then we'll just dump that in Keith's lap, and he'll solve the whole thing for us.
So,
But that's what we have to do, step by step by step by step.
and in the meantime, Off Pike Market is doing our due diligence too. So we are 2 years old. And we started with the mission of highlighting existing businesses, which meant that we would be a roving market in existing businesses, like Shumrick and Lay's Distillery, where we started, right? Or the Indian Man Cafe. So this is a pretty big change and leap. It is something that people kept asking us about, and it's something that we see a vision for, but we're trying to figure out if it's doable for us. And that's where we're at, too. In the meantime, though, we definitely are doing markets along Mills this summer, once a month, third Saturdays, beginning in May, off Pike. And with the idea that even whether we do anything at that building or not ever, we heard loud and clear from people that Victory Park was an important central part of Norwood. And so if we can activate, to Mayor Williams' point about being respectful of the memorials, but also bringing enjoyment and people and people having fun instead of doing things that they shouldn't be in that park, then our market can help in that way, at the very least, revitalize Victory Park.
Can I raise one issue on the market, so-called market house? Now you got to think about this. There are vendors down at the market house at Findlay Market. And if you look at Findlay Market, I worked right down there in the early 60s, and they had vendors in there, cheese, pickles, meat, poultry, everything. And if you can imagine the possibility of some of these vendors saying, I want to be in a market house, and then the word gets out that you've got a facility similar, which would take time, to Findlay Market. And then you ask yourself the question, if I live in Oakley, Hyde Park, Mount Lookout, Pleasant Ridge, Do I want to go down to over the Rhine to their market house? Or do I want to come to Norwood with our market house within time the same vendors?
And we are actually talking with folks. We got connected with HCDC through the quality of life process, and we're talking with the former manager of Findlay Market about what it takes to run a market. That's part of our due diligence. So we're still very much planning as well. But in the meantime, like I said, we're hoping to help revitalize Victory Park this summer by bringing some people out there and some good, sort of wholesome family entertainment and fun, right, to the park. Going back to Eric's point about the plan, I think that is what we heard over and over and over again. And to Dana's point, people want to have input in this plan, and I think that that's where this committee can be kind of a guiding force, right, in creating that plan and getting people to speak to it and what they want to see there and help us form it. I think the infrastructure committee, to Mayor Williams' point about having energetic folks and people dedicated, we have people who are willing to put their time and energy toward this. And through that process, we've also connected to places like CBI and HCDC and, Keep Norwood Cool. Dana's got such a wealth of resources, actually, and connections. And so I think that the infrastructure, I'm speaking for the infrastructure team now, we would love to work with you and be, an army of volunteers to help create a plan like this. If we want to do a survey or whatever, I think we're willing to work with you to make that kind of thing happen.
Thank you.
There are people at DAP that are really interested in working on these kinds of things. I'm not suggesting that, but that is a model that a lot of other cities are using. They're coordinating with university people who have a lot of ideas, and they have a lot of students, and shoot, that's what they're doing right now. They're having this huge design competition to cover over Fort Washington Way. And that's national talent that's coming in, student talent. So, but I'm sure that what'll happen is a lot of ideas will be presented and they'll be coalesced into some type of a professional long-term result, so.
Well, we've pretty much reached the end of our time today. I'd love to keep going. I just wanted to say, the off-pipe market, when is the next one?
The next market is a little over a month away, May 18th from 10 to 2. We are going to, I'm just going to do a little plug. We're going to have some food truck vendors. We have about 10 merchants as of right now. And graders will be there, so need I say more? So please stop by on Mills Avenue.
And it will be on Mills Avenue.
It'll be on Mills. The Mills Avenue will be closed. You have to park around one of the streets, or just walk there.
Right.
It's a great day. It's going to be a great day. The weather's going to be amazing.
Can I just say congratulations on your success so far?
Thank you
I
very
know
much.
everybody's looking
Thank you.
forward to that, the market and the...
Great. And Mr. Bryan, are there still bricks available through the American Legion for the space?
Yes, sir. So there's still bricks so there's another nonprofit, the Victory Park Veterans Fund, that's raising money to help the upkeep of the Veterans Memorial, so on. So there's bricks available, and I know we have sheets down at our post as well here at City Hall. It's $50 with an application. And also on May 18th, we're partnering with an organization, Go Local, to replace the bench that's right outside the tank that's kind of fallen apart. So we're working to do that to make sure that it's in line with the Planning Commission as well as with council's expectations and everything. So a lot happening that day. So very excited to go down to Victory Park May 18th.
And if you can convey a message to Susie Hennick for me. She asked me to get Ricky Guy to see if Ricky could sing, and I got a text that said they checked her social calendar and she is available. So,
Right. Will do.
thank you.
One last plug from me from the Quality of Life. This is an ongoing process, so we have meetings continuing on, working on projects. That's where the cleanup week came from. May 1st is our next meeting, and I'm of course blanking on the time and place, but we have some flyers. Well, we're rotating around the community now, trying to get more input and more people involved. We will be at the Firehouse. We will be at the Firehouse on Montgomery Road on May 1st at
6:30.
Thank you, at 6:30.
Just a great one.
Well,
Thank you.
I want to thank you all again so much for coming out and sharing your time with us.
Very much. Yeah.